Hi everyone, welcome to another segment on Chapter 2, Demand and Supply. In this segment, we're going to explain and understand supply. We'll look at the supply curve and the supply table. So it's very similar to demand we did in the last segment, but it's flipped to look at from the side of the producer. And we're going to explain why supply slopes upwards, and then we're going to derive the market supply, which is the one we'll use most often in this course. So here we go with the supply, and we first start by just giving its formal definition. So supply, well, that's the quantities that producers are willing and able, boy, this sounds familiar, right? Just like demand, willing and able to supply over a period of time at various prices. That is remarkably the same as demand, only now we're talking from the point of view of the producers, the businesses, not the consumers, the businesses or the producers. We're looking at their point of view. So put on your producer's hat. We're going to have very similar stuff though, as we did on the demand. We start with a supply schedule, which we said is a table showing various quantities supplied over a period of time at different prices, and a supply curve, which is really a line again, and it's a graphic representation of the supply schedule. So we take all the numbers in a table, and then we're going to end up plotting it. So let's go over to that. Here's our supply schedule, supply table. I want to point out a few things. This whole thing is called supply. It's the supply relationship. At this particular price, Bobby the brewer, at a price of 18, is only willing to produce 2 cases of beer. If the price goes up a little bit, Bobby the brewer might be willing to produce 3 cases of the beer. If the price goes up to 22, which is pretty good, Bobby the brewer says, well, they're willing to produce 6 cases of beer out of their basement beer brewing operation. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quantity supplied, but just one supply curve. So make sure, just like for demand, that you can make sense of the difference between quantity supplied and supply. So let's graph this. Here we're taking our points and putting them on the line, just like you would anywhere. And at a price of 18, there's a quantity supplied of 2. So I just go plot my price of 18 plus my quantity supplied of 2, and there it is. If the price happened to be 19, Bobby the brewer said they'd be willing to produce 3. So we plot that point. If the price happened to be 20, Bobby the brewer said they'd be willing to produce 4. So we plot that point, 20 and 4, and we just draw a line through it. That's our supply. So again, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quantity supplied, but just one supply. It's the relationship between those prices and quantities. So there's our supply curve. It's a direct relationship. I can draw the line through here. They missed that. It'll be really squiggly. But there's my supply curve. And all you did was connect the dots. So we're going to do the same thing we did with demand, and that's change the price and see what happens. So you might already know, but let's start at point A, where the quantity was 2 and the price was 18. So what we're going to do is move the price to 19, and we see we get up to point B where quantity is 3. So quantity supplied went up as the price increased. As price increases, quantity supplied increases. That's a movement along the existing supply curve. So if you recall what I asked in demand, here I'm going to ask the same skill testing question. What happened to supply here? And the answer is nothing, because this is supply. That's the supply curve. It didn't change. That relationship is still there. What did change is we increased price and we moved along the existing supply curve, which showed a change in quantity supplied, but no change in the formal use of the word supply. Okay, so make sure you understand those differences. And it's really just terminology for this course, for all economics courses, but it's really important so we both are talking about the same things. So why does the supply curve slope upward? We did the same thing for demand. We explained why the demand curve sloped downward. Why does the supply curve slope upward? Well, suppliers or producers, they're motivated by profit. Now, not all of them are as strongly motivated as others, but they have to be motivated by profit to a certain degree. And if there's a higher price, that generally means more profit. And if there's more profit, then more suppliers are willing to produce the product, so the quantity supplied is higher. So that explains the upward sloping supply curve, right? We're talking about this, and here's the supply curve. This is price, this is quantity. So we're just saying as price increases, so does quantity. Quantity supplied goes up because there's more profit, and producers therefore want to produce more to make more profit. Also, as a side note, costs rise as producers produce more, so they need a higher price to do that. But the bigger one to remember is just as price goes up, producers go, yahoo, whoopee, we're doing well. So then they actually want to increase their production in that area. So this takes us to the market supply. Just like market demand, we added up all the demand curves. Market supply, we add up all the little individual supply curves of all the little individual companies producing that particular product. We add them all up to get the market supply. So it's the total supply coming from all the producers. Okay, we have a few little assumptions on the side. We're always talking about a perfectly competitive market structure. We look at this towards the end of the course, perfect competition, it's called. So we assume that all the producers are making a very similar product, that consumers don't want to choose one producer over another. They don't have any preferences. And these assumptions don't really make a ton of intuitive sense right now, but we have to make those assumptions in the background because of the type of market we're looking at. But for the takeaway is to just know that we add up all the individual producers' supply curves to get the market supply curve. So let's take a look at that. Here we go. We've got at a price of 8, Bobby the brewer said they produce 2 cases of beer. All the other brewers together say, wow, at that price of 18, they'll produce 6. So when you add them all up, the market would produce 8 at the price of 18. As the price went up, remember we said, hey, that means it's more profitable. So Bobby is now saying, well, I'll produce 3, and all the other brewers are saying, well, we'll produce 9. So you end up with a market supply of 12, and so on. The price keeps increasing way up to 22, and Bobby's saying, this is great, I'm making lots of profit. I want to make 6 of these now because it's profitable. And everyone else is saying, yeah, we agree, we're going to make 18. So they end up making 24. And this is our market supply. These prices over on this side and these quantities supplied make up one market supply curve. So these prices and these quantities supplied make up the whole market supply curve. So now we're just going to plot this just to finalize it. There we go. On the left, we've got Bobby's supply curve if you plotted it. We've got the supply curve of all the other firms if you plotted it. We just add those up horizontally that way, and we end up with the market supply curve. So the market supply is the total quantity of all the producers at each price. Remember, there's a big difference between supply and quantity supplied. Quantity supplied are the individual numbers. Supply is the whole curve or the whole table. And here we looked at the market supply. So that ends our segment on supply. We went through individual supply, why the supply curve slopes up, and got to the market supply curve. We did that for demand. In our next section, we're going to put the two of them together. So we'll see you when we get there.